what I've noticed with a lot of people, myself included, is that you ask people a series of questions. My process, 12 questions, 20 minutes, right? Don't coach, don't really say anything to be a really, really good active listener. One is that you're giving so many people a gift that they might not be getting anywhere else, which is unfortunate, but you've given them that gift. Hooray. Number two, if they are being listened to in other places, you've been, also giving the gift of being another listener. But when people unhesitatingly talk about their experience, you will discover from your ideal clients things that you had no idea about. And very often that deep discovery, right, where you're like, holy crap, deep human connection here stuff, the passion that maybe wasn't there or was just maybe embers, really starts flaming up at that point because, there's a deep connection like nothing before from that.
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snider, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Ben, welcome to Builders. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here, and thank you for asking me.
Oh, I can't wait to dive in. There's going to be so many interesting things for people who have ever thought about writing a book, because that is a topic that I think feels very nebulous for a lot of people. And I am excited to have you because you've done so many different things and you have worked with so many experts and coaches. As the founder of Leadership Awake and Leadership Awake Press, you really help purpose-driven entrepreneurs and experts, write, finish, publish their books, and really launch or expand businesses based on that, which I am very excited about. As always, I don't even try to do justice to you, so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in your own words and tell us, what you're building.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a book coach and publisher. Been doing it for about 6 years now, officially 6 years, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm building a fully complete, comprehensive publishing program, not only for the writing and delivery of one's book to the world, but for all the strategic things that somebody can do with their book as soon as they literally have the idea. There's a way to leverage it right out of the gate. And there's also a way to have conversations with one's ideal clients at the beginning of the writing process to get the revenue to fund the writing and the publishing and the launching and the leveraging, all those kind of things. Because for me, there's a extreme, I'm sure not just for me, but for many people who are paying attention, there's an extreme lack of leadership in the world. So we certainly need more leaders and more effective leaders. And the more leaders and the more effective leaders, when they have good books, they can reach more people, amplify their message, right? Elevate the impact they're making, and also create the magic of bringing that book dream to life for themselves.
So interesting. So you're really not just helping people write books. You're helping leverage the book and the strategy as part of business growth, as part of client acquisition, as part of awareness building.
Yeah, pretty much everything. This is a book as business asset, right? It's not about book sales, although book sales are lovely, right? But using the book to do all these things in one's business, using a book to launch a business, using a book and the process that I'm describing to make sure the book is actually going to work before you go to press, because so many people don't do that. And there are so many failed books with good content in them, but there's so many failed books out there. And we want to make sure to skip that entirely because there's a lot of people in the world that need help, and we get to do that.
I love that. I mean, I'm a strategy girl, so I love the angle of this being part of a strategy, of this being, a strategic approach to book writing, because it's a big undertaking. It's a labor of love, and I've heard it, so I'm sure other people have. You don't get rich writing books, right? So having it be a tool and a component of the larger picture, I think, is a really interesting and exciting angle.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And if I may offer a slight shift in the language.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Most people don't get rich selling books, but the book the right way and then using it to develop relationships that can help you create a bunch of impact and influence and income. Yes, we can, assuming we do it right.
Excellent reframe. Thank you for that, because you are absolutely right. It's the selling of the books themselves that people say often, combination of that industry and publishing and contracts. But you are right. That is what people are referring to. So thank you for clarifying. I'm curious, we talk about entrepreneurship and business building. It's so much more accessible these days, but it's a massive undertaking. And I'm always asking guests, how did you know that this was what you were meant to do, and why this business and why now?
Goodness gracious, that's a great multi-layered question with, about 9 hours of backstory. So, so I'll give you the nutshell. I wanted to write a book since I was 12. And I've literally been writing and publishing stuff since I was 12 years old. So, God help me, 41 years now I've been doing this stuff. But I never knew book coaching was in the mix until I had an opportunity to speak at Stanford University completely out of the blue. And I said, okay, I'm in, signed the contract. And then I promised to bring books for free for all the participants that I hadn't written yet. So I had to write, produce, print, ship, and autograph a book that I hadn't written before in 6.5 weeks to fulfill my promise. And that was the beginning of this business for me. And then if we back up slightly to answer the entrepreneurial part, I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I actually had no idea, but I knew I wanted to make a big, big impact. And that was just, had been growing over the decades. And then some very clever fellow named George, who was the husband, still is the husband of my former boss when I used to work at the ALS Association, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, right, in San Francisco. During my tenure there, George figured out that, in his estimation, I was a pretty clever fellow. So at some point he was like, hey, I'm taking my business online. Do you want to be my director of marketing and sales? And I said, holy crap, George, I would love to be. Is it okay that I have background in neither marketing nor sales? And he said, it's totally fine, figure it out. And that was the beginning of this whole adventure 16 years ago.
Incredible. I also find it so poetic that your drive to create impact is being funneled into helping others create impact.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel really fortunate. And I want to speak a teeny bit more to that because I think there's a lot of us, who want to make the impact. So let me use me as the story. So when I first started, I was like, I want to help 1 million people, right? And then after a little while, I was like, that's exhausting, right? And then I was like, wait a minute. When I figured out the book stuff, I was like, wow, I can help these people with their books reach their communities, their networks, their email lists, that kind of thing. So whether or not I reach the people really doesn't matter at this point, but I can reach I want to say the California version of this. I'll say the G-rated crap ton version of people, thanks to helping people write a really high quality book that helps transform their business.
I love that. And you can say anything you want on this podcast.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry, children. Sorry, moms.
Yeah, I have no idea how the platforms rate us, but
sure.
I always want people to just be showing up. This is the nitty gritty, the real stories. Then that kind of needs to not have a filter.
I agree with you. Shit ton.
I fucking love it. All right. So I want to just think back, I mean, you just said that started 16 years ago when you leapt into, and this is the penultimate entrepreneur, you leapt into a role that you didn't have experience in and you figured it out, right? What have been some of the experiences, pivots, mentors, moments along the way that have shaped you the most?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to proceed or answer from a time before the 16-year period. So a big factor in my ultimate success was an incredibly large amount of drugs, right? Because many drugs for many years and not knowing it was a problem because I was getting more successful jobs and getting raises and all these kinds of things. But ultimately, rock bottom comes sooner or later. So it was the rock bottom, and the extreme amount of suffering to get there and then to be in there that, fortunately I didn't die. So, and fortunately I got my act together. And a big part of that was meditation, learning, discovering meditation in India, actually. So there's that whole exotic flair.
Let's open that door.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, before rock bottom, I had been in India once for about 2 months, traveling around, partying, really having no tools as far as mindfulness, awareness, meditation. I mean, I was starting to get a clue, but I didn't have any operational stuff in the toolbox, right? And on that trip in India, I faced death 4 times within a 72-hour period. Bus almost going off a mountain road, like 6,000 feet up, then running from a wildfire, then encountering a poisonous snake, and then encountering a mountain lion. It was wild. And so I got back to the U.S. with an absolutely, galvanized on crack desire to be of service. Right, I was like, okay, I made it. Okay, let me, how can I help? How can I help? But then I was still doing a bunch of drugs, and the drugs were getting, to the harder end of the spectrum, right? So we're now at the point of, and I do this. I say this next line in my keynote. I say, but then I started doing meth. But don't worry, it was only on Friday nights, at least at the beginning, right? Right. So that was what led to the rock bottom. And when I got to the rock bottom, I was like, wow, what the hell can I do? And I was like, I know, I'm going back to India. That was the answer. No idea where, how, no logic. It was just, the intuitive hit. I went back to India, did a month of volunteering, lived with a family in the Himalayas, helping them to farm barley, which was amazing. And then discovered meditation in the same city where the Dalai Lama lives, which is called McLeod Ganj. Got to see him a few times. He's really cute, not to mention, fully awakened being, like no joke. Holy crap. Yeah, so it was all of those things, helping me ultimately realize, it took about 12 years, oh my goodness. Well, 2 things. One is there's a difference between pain and suffering, right? Pain is part of the human experience. Suffering is ultimately technically optional, if you really break it down. So I figured that out for myself, and I was like, this is great. This is really helping a lot. And then I was like, oh, snap. I can apply that to book writing. You don't have to suffer through your book. That doesn't mean it's not going to be hard or difficult or emotion churning or, terrifying or whatever those things are, because it will be. But you don't have to suffer through that stuff. And I teach a method to navigate that when it comes up. If you have to do it 1 time as you're writing or 50 times as you're writing. And in essence, smile and let your body relax and let your head and face relax and breathe and go back to the writing. And if you have to do that 50 times, do that 50 times. But don't get hooked on the uncomfortable thought or feeling or experience or emotion, because it's not personal. It feels personal because it sucks, right? But it's not personal. You didn't ask for it to come up, so don't get involved. Right? If you push it away, if you drink it away, if you drug it away, if you shop it away, right, it's going to come screaming and bouncing back louder. But if you hang out over here and let it be over there, it's going to soften, eventually lose its steam, and eventually it's going to disappear. And that's both neurophysiologically, right, because you're not feeding it, and it's also karmically. because you're not feeding those seeds, right? You planted those seeds at some point before, and then they're showing up right now, right? Causes and conditions are going, ooh, this sucks, right? Don't get involved. So you're, you know, not getting hooked on the beginning, and you're not planting the seed for the future, ooh, this sucks feeling, as at least as intently the next time.
Well, I love what you're just covering, and I feel like probably anyone writing a book is going through a growth and spiritual experience, but it feels like when they go through it with you, it's, like I think any book is a hard experience and we always grow through those, but it sounds like what you're sharing is more tools, to your point, get through it faster and get to the other side with just so much more self-awareness and wisdom,
Yep.
that probably also gets, fertilized into the book itself. So I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel really fortunate to have kind of connected all the dots around this, from my own experience and starting to teach it over the years, refining, and then talking to more and more of my clients, and then going, yeah, them going, this, this happened and this happened, and I just realized how much of a transformational tool is a book for ourselves as the author, as the writer. And I don't scream that very loudly at the beginning with my authors, but when we're in the thick of it, I go, you might have figured out that this is a deeply transformational process, which is why you might not feel really good right at this moment, but it's okay. Because it's going to change. It isn't.
Remember, here's the testimonials from people on the other side.
Right.
It gets better.
Remind, yep, and reminder to smile, breathe, etc. Again and again and again. Sometimes to the point where people are like, all right, Ben, I hear it, you've said it 50 times already. And I'm like, I know, here's 51.
I feel like sometimes I have that 50 times in a day for myself. Like,
Right?
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Me too.
So, you've had this very winding career and some pretty big pivotal moments. And I think you were part of launching AARP magazine.
That is correct.
How did that shape your passion for entrepreneurship, or what was that experience like?
Yeah, thank you. So many things. So I had a several year magazine career, if you will, some big titles, not just AARP, but Modern Bride, you might recognize, Condé Nast Traveler, you might recognize, Colonial Homes, which became Classic American Homes by Hearst, which ultimately folded, unfortunately. And then I finished it off with AARP, the magazine. And this was a massive relaunch, rebranding right around the year 2000, where AARP was trying to not just be for older people, right, but to really find the way to support the range of people 45 and up. Right? This was their goal, and that's tricky. And in doing the work for them, super fun to launch a magazine and be in charge of a magazine that printed 32 million copies, right? Crazy, tremendous circulation, tremendous global circulation. I feel bad about the trees, right? There's that downside, but to be able to say, it's part of one of the biggest magazines in the world, that was super cool. And in working with AARP, AARP is actually a nonprofit, right? I don't know if you know this, right? It's a lobbying group for the interests of, basically people over 45 and 50, governmentally, healthcare, Medicaid, all these kinds of things. So I was like, okay, cool. Here's some work that is of service. So I felt good about that. But then as I dug into the work, I was like, yeah, I like the work. It's creative and I know it's of service, but I can't feel the direct feeling of service. Right. So I was like, I need to change this up. So I ended up moving to California, and a couple of bumps and bruises because there was a lot of meth at that point. But I found my way to working for the ALS Association, right? That was absolutely fantastic. And I was like, okay, service, like we're making a difference, we're making an impact, which was true. But, this office of the ALS Association, which I think is accurate for many nonprofits and NGOs, is that it's really difficult to work at them. There can be a lot of infighting. The culture can be really shitty. Right, all these kinds of things, and this was my experience there. Certainly some wonderful people and wonderful experiences, but in the big picture, I was like, this is a drag, right? This is really, really hard. I want to do something where I can have, the freedom and flexibility to help on a big way. And this was back when I was like, million people, right? But I want to make a, be able to make a bigger impact, do it on my terms. And I also want, the freedom and flexibility and lifestyle, of an entrepreneur. I want to make a bunch of money, not because, I want stuff, but I want experience. I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to be able to, sort out my parents if I need to, like all those kinds of things. And, the various and sundry mysterious ways the universe moves, you know, George said, "How about this?" And I said, "Okay." And from taking the leap, right, and starting to work with George, it took 10 years to figure out the book stuff. So 10 years of hustle. I had no idea what I was doing, right? I had no business background, like I said, no marketing background, no, real business capability. I mean, like I had a, instinct for business, which was coming through the work I was doing, but I didn't really know formally how to do anything. So I was still doing things like catering and food delivery. I was living in San Francisco at the time. Seasonally, like because it was California, I would go trim weed, right? Like all the things that I had to do to make it work. And for the first, goodness gracious, probably 7 years of being an entrepreneur, six to 7 years, I was pulling down a whopping $30,000 a year, maybe. Yeah. I mean, really
Gonna
just,
ask you, like, were you kind of, because I know you're also you're an author and you, I think, do ghostwriting, and so I was like, were you doing all of this in the background of working with George and launching that business, and you know,
yeah, no, so really none of the book state stuff came into the fray, like that whole Stanford story. None of that happened until like 6 or 7 years in, right? And it was like the Stanford thing happened, and then it took 2 years. Well, part two of the Stanford thing. So I promised the books. I show up, fantastic, amazing experience. The event goes really well. I get hired because at that time I was positioning myself as a public speaker. I got hired to speak a couple more times at Stanford, once at the University of Washington. I got hired to speak in Sydney, Australia the following year from the audience people because I had given everybody a copy of my book. Write this down, listener. Right? Really, really important. Don't sell books at the back of the room. Give everybody a book. Right? Very, very important. So I'd done all that stuff and then, spoke in Australia, did these, two gigs over 2 days. But if we go back in time slightly in the frantic writing, in the 3 week time of writing the book, I got the cover designed. I put it up on LinkedIn. Everybody listen, write this down. Put it up on LinkedIn, and I said, "Hey, I'm celebrating. My next book is coming." This is all that I said. Frantically writing the book, get it up there. Uh, this guy who's a consultant reaches out to me and he's like, "Hey, Ben, want to talk to you. I'm working on a project. It's a Fortune 100 company, MIT, and a video game studio. We are creating a mindfulness and empathy video game that's going to be played by 20,000 employees at this Fortune 100 company. We saw your book." And in my head, I'm going, "You didn't see my book. You saw the cover of my book, right? But we saw your book. We'd like to talk to you about writing the curriculum for the video game." And I went, "Of course I'll write the curriculum for the video game," right? Never heard of that, never thought of that, but I was like, yes. And that turned into 10 months of consulting with the Fortune 100 company. Stanford experience, Fortune 100 company experience, like two big things, literally like within a 6 month window. Like, holy crap, this is amazing. It took 18 months from that, all that happening, for me to finally go, oh, I can turn this into a business, right? I can show people how to write a high quality book real fast. I can show them how to get clients before the book is done, right? I can show them how to make sure the book is going to work. I can hold their hand through the publishing.
I love
And then,
that.
and that's when I put the business together.
Nothing like a little pressure cooker to sort things out that have been percolating in
Right?
your kind of periphery for years. So I definitely want to come back to those, and the two things you did flag. Put a cover, even if it's not the final one, up on every platform you possibly can while you're writing your book with a working title to gain traction and awareness and credibility for what you're going to be writing about. and give away your book to every person in the room when you do speak. Okay, so I want to call that out if you're listening. 2 tips, but we are going to, as always, delve into Ben's tangible expertise and takeaways. But before we do that, I want to come back to what you said before. You said, you moved to California, you're doing this and this, but you wanted the entrepreneur life. You wanted a certain amount of flexibility and freedom. You wanted a certain financial stability that aligned with your values and your ability to take care of people you love, right? And if you know me, in builders, we talk about this, but also in leaders who build, this is part of what I work with my clients on, right? What is, and I love a little branding, wealthy leadership, right? Wealthy leadership is a business, leading a business of your dreams that doesn't require you to sacrifice everything else in your life, right? That allows you to build the business you want and understand that there are other priorities and that you have the freedom and choice to build another business, spend time with your family, go to the gym, invest in other community, learning, passion, whatever it is, that ultimately makes you the best version of you, which will make you a great leader if you have all the tools and processes and people. Anyways, off my soapbox. When you said that, I was like, amazing. You recently moved, well, I said recently, gosh, I think it's been 2 years, to Spain.
To Spain.
From California to Spain. And was that part of the plan always? Was that a redefinition of what success on your terms means?
Yeah, thank you. So in college, I was a Olympic level weed smoker, and couldn't quite get my act together to go study abroad. And that really, it was such a deep, painful regret for a long time. Right. So, always wanted to live abroad, and then finally started traveling and was getting myself into the cadence of being able to be abroad for a few months here and there, in a bunch of different countries. I mean, to date, I think I'm on 23 countries, which is nice, and 4 continents, which I'm excited to report. But back then, I was starting to clock more time, if you will, in different parts of the world. And then I got to a point, and I was living in San Francisco at this time. I was like, okay, I want to do like a third and a third and a third. Time in San Francisco is my base, which I love. Time in New York around the city with my family, and then the remaining time somewhere out of the United States. Right, so I did that for a few years, and that worked really well. And then at the end of my tenure in California, I had been in California for 19 years, all of a sudden, and maybe years 16 to 19, I was starting to get the itch to go. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to move back to New York. Right? I miss New York pizza and bagels. Which is always a comment that I have to make, because I'm eating all of them, as many as I can, literally as we speak. But the other part was like, I'll be closer to my family. My nephews are getting bigger, that whole deal. And then the way that I planned to come back totally fell through. And I was in Spain at the time. This is the end of December of 2022. I'm in southern Spain for a few months, on that cadence that I described before. The New York plans fell through, and at first I was like, damn it, roar, for maybe an hour. And then I calmed down, and then I was like, why don't I just move here? And then I went back to the US and I just started. Thank you. Just got back to the US after that trip, and then just started I got back to the US February of 23, I guess. Yep, Feb 23. Started the process, and I was relocated to Spain by December of that same year.
Wow. So what does success on your terms look like today, and how has that changed over time, not just location?
Yeah, so success on my terms is a bunch of things. Thank you for asking. So it is what is the term you used before, wealthy business?
Wealthy leadership. Wealthy
leadership, thank you. Sorry. So very much everything that you just described before, very well, those. No second guessing, no pause, no hesitation. about spending money on anything, right? And I am not a extravagant person. I don't care about stuff. None of that is really my jam, right? I like experiences. I like to have money to be able to give money charitably, right? And I want financial freedom, unhesitating financial freedom, sooner rather than later. I want to, or I know it's all coming. Change my language, right? I look forward to, um, yeah, doing, two meditation retreats a year instead of my usual one, right? I look forward to, you know, being able to choose to go volunteer in a refugee camp for 3 months, right? And knowing that there's enough money, in the mix, whether or not they can pay me some money, right? Yeah, I mentioned my parents before. Like, I want to make sure, people in my family are sorted. Uh, yeah, I want to, yeah, anybody who I can, support logically, tangentially in my business, unhesitatingly. Like, I want to do that.
I love that. I think that's how you and I kind of connected initially. Like, I think we have a lot of that in common. When I started this business, I knew I wanted a business that, I was making an impact while paying my bills and had sufficient flexibility, freedom, time, bandwidth to work on projects when they came up that I felt were really making a difference without worrying about if or how they could compensate me. And that was a really big one that I am so grateful. Business has ups and downs, but that I have really been able to do. And just because of where I've been located, often that has really allowed me in the last 4 years to get into the LATAM startup ecosystem, where a lot of the companies are changing the world for the populations of Central America, Latin America, and in different ways, right? Which I think is, we can do a whole other podcast about, charitable work is great. Absolutely. Nonprofits, to your point, have a bad rep for working with them, but they do good work. But there is a really interesting role also for entrepreneurship in changing the world. And I really think that it's something that it took me a long time to understand, that I didn't have to be at some level with every connection and every amount of funding to have the kind of impact that I really wanted to have, and that actually, my experience and knowledge and skills were that. So, and that doesn't mean that I do have on my planning of things that I look forward to doing, love that, is, setting up an angel syndicate, angel investing fund to contribute funding and knowledge and experience. But I think that that's something that I love about the conversation that we're having, and a lot of the other guests we have, is that drive. And then when you realize how you can do that in different ways, and how you can set your business up to do that, and then, as you said, also give you flexibility to do it in other ways. I love that.
Thank you. And thank you for doing all what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. So I'm curious, if what you kind of described, has that changed from the past? Because I think we're often learning more about the world, learning more about ourselves, making trade-offs, maybe changing what trade-offs we're willing to make as we move through and, refine kind of that purpose and drive.
Yeah, great question. And I would say yes and no. I mean, this drive for service, the drive to express service and feel the expression directly, has been, with me probably since I was about 15, right? And I guess the evolution of that is just seeing how I can do that on a meta level, like through business and relationships and all those kinds of things, and then also how I can do it on a personal level. Like, one of the things that I want to do is sell my business. Well, it might be businesses. We'll see what happens, but the book coaching and publishing, I'd like to sell in about 4 years. Not that I don't love the work, but yeah, I want to go. I want to go to that refugee camp. Like I want to be a hospice volunteer again, right? There's a bunch of. I want to like. I literally want to be right there serving, because that has been like I know I make impact, but there's nothing like right there, right? So so I think it's just the expansion and evolution of that, being able to express those in multiple ways, right? Because of partnerships, because of my own, desire of, what I want to do, how I want to do it. I mentioned earlier in this conversation, that I wanted to write a book since I was 12. So I've written, I've published 4 business books. I've written the 5th. I have to edit the darn thing, damn it. And any minute now. But the novel, the book that I wanted to write since I was 12 is a novel. Yeah, and for many years I was like, oh, I don't think I can because I can't really like I don't know how to make things up, right? And I really don't like that's not I don't I'm a good writer. I don't excel in creation of like that. I really struggle there. But I've lived such a what wacky, non-traditional, you know, periodically, ridiculous. Oh my God, I almost died life that I have so many stories now that I know what I can put into the novel. I mean, I'm going to make a character. It's not going to be about me, right? I'm going to, what's the word, fictionalize, characterize. But to be able to dig in and do that is so much more important than ever before because it's been this desire, this dream, this artistic pull for so many years. And I read voraciously. Like I read, for the past 5 years, I read about 110 books of fiction a year. Um, and half of my brain is enjoying, assuming the book is good, right? The other half is looking, tracking of like I could do that. I'm taking screenshots of, so I'm studying reading, right? The whole deal.
For anyone out there, that's 2 books a week
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
or
Yep, yep.
at least.
Um, Thank you. Yes, the trick for that sidebar here is uh, a library app on your phone, your library card, and then you can literally be carrying 25 books at a time with you. Yeah, the library app and Kindle also on your phone. So there are ways to do this. Um, but yeah, the you know almost dying in India several times. Even on the second trip, being a hospice volunteer for several years. You know, who the hell knows? Like if we're going to make it to this afternoon, technically,
Yeah.
right? I envision a long life. Hopefully healthy, um, and happy and all those kinds of things. And I see it enough, I hear it enough that I'm reminded daily. um, you know, get that shit done now, right? Take the shot, even if it doesn't get published. Or you don't finish it or whatever. Just do the thing, do the thing. And, I'm speaking of evolution, right? I'm practicing, doing the thing without rushing to do the thing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Well, so talking about books, right? I'm actually so fortunate to be surrounded by so many incredible authors or soon to be authors. It feels like a really interesting time um, in my network for that, which I love. And one of my closest friends is actually got a pre-copy at an event. She signed it, and it's literally one of my most cherished possessions now because she put a very meaningful inscription in it, and it feels like I have watched her evolve. And so to have this book is really exciting for me. And I'd love to dig in a little bit more to your wealth of knowledge on this because I'm sure anyone who clicked on this episode is like, oh, a book, maybe. But I have to say, my first question when I think about books in the bigger picture is, are people still really reading books?
Yes, and
Yes, and.
yes, and So statistically, across all books, all genres, fiction, nonfiction, I mean, basically all books, most people don't read the whole book.
Interesting.
Yep. A lot of people will skim and scan and jump around, and maybe they read a little bit at the front and then table of contents, and they're like, ooh, chapter 7. I think what I need is in chapter 7, right? Because, in this hyper digital age, right, there is a ton of communication overload, as we all know, right? So I think one of the responses to that, unfortunately, is that people don't read whole books. And I understand, and I can be certainly guilty of that. The fiction books I'll read fully if I like them, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But the rest of them I won't. So so there's that, and books these days need to be written in a way that accommodates that reality, right? So how do you write a book? How do you construct or architect a book in a way that if somebody just pops in and pops out, you know, have you given them some value? Have you helped them see what's possible? Have you positioned yourself as an expert?
Mm.
Have you, opened the gap, so to speak, created enough clarity that they should take a next step with you, at least get on your email list, right?
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
yeah,
It was so interesting you said that also because within the last few days, somebody said, there's no real rules. You don't have to, and then they listed a bazillion things, including you don't have to read a book from cover to cover. You can start in the middle. You can do this, and I like. I mean, I can see that in a nonfiction. In a fiction one, I was like, I mean, way to make your life hard and confusing, but okay.
sure, sure.
Um, Probably there's a metaphor in that for life. Um, but to your point about just how much is out there and how digital we are, you know, aren't there just so many books out there already?
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. It's something like on Amazon, really million new books are published. So 2,740-ish a day.
8 billion, maybe that's not so crazy. I don't know. It
Right,
seems,
yeah,
yeah,
right. Yeah, so to your point, right? Yes, there are a ton of books. Absolutely.
yeah.
And there are a ton of crap books. Absolutely. There are a ton of mediocre books. There are a ton of not well executed books.
Mm,
None of that matters a lick in my experience. Yeah, yeah. Not a lick. Because I think that in the human psyche, right, in the Jungian collective unconsciousness, potentially in our DNA, although I can't prove that, and I've not actually asked a scientist. Um, uh, you know, books have been around for a long time as an entity, as a communication tool, right? You know, as a as a Bible, as a Quran, as a you know Talmud, right? Like books got power. Period. For most people, most of the time. Oh my God, you wrote a book, you must know something. Oh my God, you wrote a book, you must be an expert, right?
okay.
Right? There's that fantastic story 20 years ago. I can't remember the author, but a woman wrote a book, the complete guide to everything that men know about women, and the book is completely blank. And I think she made $1 million on book sales or something like that,
I love
right?
that. $1 million on a practical joke? Amazing.
Pretty
Social
much.
statement? I don't know.
Yeah. So, so I certainly don't recommend writing a blank book, right? Like that doesn't serve. But to recognize, understand the power of the book, right? As soon as you have an idea for the book, start referring to yourself verbally and on LinkedIn as the forthcoming author of a new book about X, because
Right.
people will perceive you differently immediately.
So this is kind of my question as well, because I think this is where your specific expertise and angle and how you help people comes in. Because you think of a book as this like passion fueled. I just like I have to write this. I have to get this out there, and it sounds like maybe that's not entirely the case. So, is writing a book good for business? Why, or is it a personal calling, or are those two completely separate use cases?
Yeah, thank you. Uh, Absolutely, it's a great idea for your business, period. And I'll say more about that in a moment. For many of us and many people I know, it's also passion, driving it, inspiring, etc. Some people that I work with and that I've chatted with, it's really because they see the strategic benefit and relevance of it. They don't really, so much see the passion part of it, right? Or it's not so inspiring. But if they, at least in my experience with them, if they really let themselves be in the process of the writing and creation of the book, the passion finds its way to the surface. And a lot of it I would actually chalk up to my methodology, right? Because there's a way, if I go back to this thing I keep talking about of, get clients before the book is done by having conversations with your ideal clients about the book you're writing before the book is done, right? Talk to your ideal clients about their, challenges and fears and frustrations and things like that, all in the context of writing the book, and right,
Okay,
talk
so
to
you're
those people
using research as a door opener.
using, yep, as a door opener.
Self-actualizing yourself.
Yep, yep, and building trust and credibility. Yep. And what I've noticed with a lot of people, myself included, is that ask people a series of questions. My process, 12 questions, 20 minutes, right? Ask people 12 questions. Don't coach. Don't, really say anything. Just be a really, really good active listener. One is that you're giving so many people a gift that they might not be getting anywhere else, which is unfortunate, but you've given them that gift. Hooray. Number two, if they are being listened to in other places, you've been, also giving the gift of being another listener. But when people, unhesitatingly talk about their experience, which is easier when it's in the context of a book, right? They will open up in a big way. You will discover from your ideal clients things that you had no idea about. And very often that deep discovery, right, where you're like, holy crap, deep human connection here, stuff that resonates, the passion that maybe wasn't there or was just maybe embers, really starts flaming up at that point because, there's a deep connection like nothing before from that. So let me come back around to your question here. So that's the passion part of it. Good for your business? Absolutely, it's good for your business. Almost instant credibility, right? Position yourself as an expert authority. If you do what I just said, right, or if we have the pleasure of sharing this adventure sometime, reader, listener, etc., with writing your book, you get clients and referrals and strategic partners from the book long before it's written, right? So you are validating not only the book, you're validating your business. You're validating the needs and wants and desires and challenges and goals and dreams of the people you serve, right? You can tweak the dials on your audience, right? You can speak to a couple of subsets of your audiences and make sure you're in the right spot, right? You can keep your finger on the pulse with your ideal clients. Like, what do they really need now versus 6 months ago versus 2 years ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to put myself in, our audience's shoes, and they're like, okay, Ben, but like, what's the ROI and what's that time that I could be spending on something else to grow my business? But it sounds like you're really doing things to grow your business, to write your book, to then kind of create this loop, right?
Yep. So book as business asset is literally one of the highest leverage things you can create because you can simultaneously be working on your book, attracting clients, strategic partners, validating your stuff, and then creating an asset that gets all the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of stuff out of your brain and onto paper, which is an unburdening like you will never have experienced if you haven't done this already. Your book, right? Did you ever see, Alex, at a wedding or on a video at least, a champagne glass pyramid?
Yeah.
Right? So for audience, if you've not seen it, pyramid of stacked champagne glasses, three-dimensional, and they fill up all of the glasses with champagne by pouring just into the top glass, and it cascades over, and then they fill. If it's 6 tiers of glasses, it's 92 glasses. So they fill 92 glasses just from pouring in the top. So I like to liken. Can I say that? I enjoy likening the top glass to our book, right? So we pour in our wisdom, our experience, our stories, our expertise, all that good kind of stuff, and that cascades into all the other things. So I have figured out. So far, there are 43 ways to use, leverage, repurpose your book almost without extra effort. Right? So if we go back to this idea of business asset, right? Podcast, blogs, articles, part of a program delivery, TV show, digital product, licensing, right? White labeling stuff, custom book for a really high ticket client, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Without reinventing the wheel.
Yeah. Right? So is there a one-size-fits-all strategy for succeeding as an author for your business? Or is it, I mean, you just said there's like 43 ways. Is it that all of those are for everyone and you should do them all? Is it that different ones work for different types of businesses or outcomes?
Yep. Thank you for asking. So, so the 43 uses, et cetera, are things you can do once the book is in the world, right? Ways to leverage, repurpose, expand the platform, whatever the case may be. So I'm answering your question backwards. So I say to people, do the ones that are super high leverage. Don't do them all because they could drive you crazy until maybe you have a staff or a bunch of, kind of regular time vendors that can execute those things for you. So that's that part of that. As far as is there a one-size-fits-all strategy? If you want to use the book to get clients and partners and revenue before the book is done, right? If you want to validate your business and your audience and all those kinds of things before the book is done, if you want to get the book done in as little as 5 weeks, the first draft done, if you want a high quality tool and you're not looking to sell books, yeah, there's only one path, which is this, right? And I'm not saying it because it's my thing, right? I'm saying it because I figured out over the years that, holy shit, like this is the way to do it. Like, don't fuck around and take a guess with your book, right? Which many people do, and they publish it and they're like, womp womp, right? It's not working, right? And don't think just because you're good at your work that you're just going to put that content into a book and it's going to work. No, it's not. Right? Because the delivery didn't work, or you didn't talk to your clients to see what they actually need and how they're talking about it and the language that they're using today to talk about what they need. Right? Assumption will kill your business. Like, we all know that. But how much do we practice it? Like, we have to be reminded to practice it. Right? So yeah, there's other things you can do with your book that, you can, of course you can be successful with. But if you want like epic outcomes, and when I'm talking epic, there's no hyperbole here, right? I have a client, 5-figure workshop fee before her book was done from that conversation process that I'm teaching, right? I have another client, $50,000 coaching gig from the conversation process before the book was done. I have another client, 6-figure consulting gig before the book was done, thanks to the conversation process, right? I have another client, we published her book. It's called Being Brown in a Black and White World. Brilliant title, right? Right, woman of mixed race, who teaches DEI stuff, consults on DEI stuff, publish her book, and somebody at Google buys her book, reads her book, and reaches out and is like, Anne-Marie, we love your book, come speak at Google, we'll pay you. Right, no publicist, no previous relationship with Google, nothing. Right, they found her book, they asked her, right? So all sorts, I mean, there are 6, 7, and 8-figure reasons to do the book and all the associated impact.
I have to ask, 5 weeks. 5 weeks?
Yeah.
How, it sounds too good to be true. How do you even try that, let alone make it work on repeat for so many different clients?
Yep. So a couple things I want to say about that. Disclaimer, transparency, all the things, right? Not everybody does it in 5 weeks, right? Some people it takes a little bit longer. Some people, one person I know, it took a little bit less. I've done it in less, right? Right. The book needs what it needs, right? And sometimes we need a little extra nudge to stay on track with it, yada yada yada. And with my process, sometimes a lot of times actually, it takes people longer to do the book because in their outreach and conversations about the book with their clients, they get clients and they're like, I got to put the book on pause because I have 3 new clients, right? So that's cool, right? Yeah, but if we go back to like the tactical ways to do this, right? So one big part of it is having had the conversations with one's ideal clients, right? You have a whole set of data around what people want, what people don't want, and the language that they're using to describe it. So that really helps to provide the focus of the book, which facilitates the speed at which the book comes to light and life. Number 2 is parameters, right? Boundaries are really, really good, and boundaries are the things that we, as creative people, rail against so much, right? But boundaries are really our friends in the book world, or in the book writing world. Maximum book size, 25,000 words, 160 pages, right? Big enough, but not too big, right? If you're going over 25,000 words, save it for the second book. Because one book,
are you teeing up a series, like the next?
totally, yeah, because one book looks amazing. More than one book, each subsequent book is exponentially more powerful, right, for your platform and your brand. So 25,000 words maximum, big enough, big enough, small enough, data from the conversations that I just described, and then I give my authors a blueprint to follow for the book, very precise. This, that you can do piece by piece by piece. You don't even have to write the book from front to back. Very often people don't. And in each of those piece, I teach a writing framework where literally somebody can, if they choose to do this, not everybody chooses to do this, but it helps a lot. Write down 4 bullet points according to the writing framework of the thing you're going to talk about related to this section of the book. Set the timer for 5 minutes and talk through the 5 bullet points. Teach for 5 minutes. And then do one of 2 things. 1, copy and paste into your book document and start editing from there. Number 2, re-record it 2 more times, because by the 3rd 5-minute recording, that shit is super dialed in, right? Like you're almost done. 5 minutes of speaking, 750 words. 750 words is 3% of the 25,000 word book.
Wow.
You can literally dictate your book in 33 days, within a 15-minute window each day, for example.
All right, Ben, I'm gonna say that is such a powerful point to end on. And if anyone is listening to that last, 90 seconds, and they're not thinking, oh my God, maybe I should be writing a book, then, I don't know what else would convince them. So if people are thinking about this, and I honestly can't imagine who wants to write a book alone at this point. I think we all understand the power of, expert advice and systems and frameworks. How do people find you? How do they get in contact with you? How do they work with you?
Yeah, thank you. You can email me, ben@influencewithaheart.com. You can visit my website. Yeah,
put everything in the notes too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my website is influencewithaheart.com. There's a bunch of great resources on there under tools. What else? There's also my Connect page where you can book a call with me. I'm not going to try to sell you anything, right? The first most important thing about your book is help you get clear on actually how to approach it, right? Like if I can ultimately help you formally, it would be my pleasure. If I can help you not work with me because somebody else is better, it would be my pleasure, right? But let's get you clear on the book first, because there are people waiting for your book right now. Like I know you're waiting for your book right now, but like there are people who are waiting and they need you, and they're not gonna say yes to anybody else but you. There's that subset of people. There's some people who you can serve that can be served by other people. Sure, no problem. But there's some subset of those people who will only ever work with you. right? So get the damn book out there.
And you're also a publisher now, right? So if
I am
someone
a
is in the
publisher.
process, you could potentially be helping them with that last step. We didn't touch on that. Like really quickly. That's
Yeah,
my bad. We didn't even touch on that.
no,
Exciting.
yeah, thank you. So I made the official announcement this year. Leadership Awake Press is an official thing. My publishing company is an official thing. I am showcasing, you know, many, most, if not all of the authors that I've served because they're all purpose driven in some way, shape, or another. So I wanted a publishing company and a platform that honored people who are doing good work, right? Who are impacting the world in all kinds of different ways. I think only one of those people who I'm describing actually worked for nonprofits. The rest of it is for profit, all people making all this different kind of impact. So Leadership Awake Press, and there are half a dozen strategic things that somebody can do with their book before, during, and after it's published that very few people think of, almost nobody thinks to do and do effectively. So I teach that stuff. Big one, well, one big one, leverage the cover. We talked about that already. But number two, really big one, almost nobody does this. Separate the book release, like the publishing date, from the bestseller launch date by at least 2 months.
Okay.
Yep. So you release the book, and the first thing you do is take a vacation because you just published a freaking book. Very important. I kid you not. Take a rest. And then in the subsequent 2 months, I call this a smart gap, 2 or 3 or whatever months. Get on podcasts, right? Like do that kind of stuff. Send physical books to people, right? All that kind of stuff. And grow your relationships with people, of people who can be on board, and then 2 3 months down the line, then do the bestseller launch with all of these people behind you, all this momentum behind you, and now you've had two big public facing opportunities to showcase your book, and not just one, because a lot of times people are like, publish the book, help me be a bestseller, and they've conflated two activities into one, and they've lost a tremendous amount of strategic opportunity.
That and I love that insight into how you think and see it because again, as a strategy girl, I'm like, yes, love that stuff.
Thank you.
So, Ben, before we wrap up, I have 5 rapid fire questions for you. You can answer in a word, a sentence, you can pass. There are no rules. These are for fun. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Amazing. What's one decision that changed everything for you as a leader growing a business?
Uh, Making meditation a regular part of my life.
Right. What does strategy feel like when you're doing it well?
Like juicy, no time, and kind of really light in my heart.
Hmm. Is there a book or podcast or person that really cracked something open for you?
Oh God. Um, list of many, many people, and um, there's a book by a Buddhist Vietnamese monk who's no longer with us, named Thich Nhat Hanh, um, called Old Path, White Clouds, and it is a narrative. What do they call that? Biopic? Is that the term? Of the Buddha, of the life of the Buddha. It's amazing because the Buddha was a real cool dude.
Love it. I love that. What's something you've said never again to in your business?
Working with people who I even feel the slightest glimmer of apprehension around working with.
Just your gut.
Yeah.
And if you had a free weekend, zero obligations, how would you spend it?
Uh, Walking around, a bunch of that would be in nature, reading a ton, um, and smoking some good ganja.
I love it. Ben, thank you for a really fascinating conversation. There were so many tangible tidbits in there that I think listeners are going to love. And thank you for sharing your journey and your insights with us on Builders.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for being a great interviewer. And yeah, it's really a pleasure to to get to share certain parts of this journey with you. So I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you. And we look forward to your novel when it comes out.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no-fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to peep my creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.